This is a free sample of the book, Reinvent Ideal, What to Do When You're Depressed and No One Cares Because You're Not a Chick, by Cairo Copeland. The first half of this book is posted right here on YouTube, free for everyone to listen to. If you like this content and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/ideal. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/ideal.
Chapter 4. Rejoice when you're rejected. The next common client that came to me envies the previous one. They wish they at least had gotten to experience a relationship, but every attempt they made to get into one was rejected. Sometimes these clients were what you'd call incels. It seemed that there was just no hope for them in getting to experience a connection with a woman. They were the Steve Urkels and Screech Powers. Caleb was one such client. Every message he had ever sent on dating apps went unreturned, despite how lengthy and thoughtful they were. And to his credit, he had the nerve to go after what he wanted by asking a woman in person for a date, but he went about it all wrong and was turned down each time. Sometimes the rejections were soft, like, I think we're better off as just friends. And sometimes they were harsh, like laughter in his face. He was dead set on getting a girlfriend, as all his other guy friends in high school had them, but he never did. Thus, they moved on, and as they had their double dates and couple get-togethers without him since he had no partner to bring, college was no different. If he were out with his friends, he was often the third or fifth wheel. Still a virgin at age 28, and not just sexually, but he hadn't even kissed a girl yet. He wanted a girlfriend badly. Now, we began our coaching program on him with the usual prescription. Before even talking about women, we focused on developing his emotional intelligence and social intelligence. We did personal financial planning, began intense personal training sessions in the gym, and overhauled his wardrobe, and even taught him how to dance. 5 months of this coaching and training went on. Now, in the first 3 months, he knew he wasn't ready, but now that his body was transforming and his social intelligence was increasing, he became restless in the last 2 months. When are you going to show me how to ask women out without getting rejected? He asked impatiently. He had been paying $1,000 a month for our coaching, so you could hear the eagerness in his words once it surpassed $5,000. Or perhaps because it surpassed that amount without us even talking about how to win women over. I still did not think he was ready to begin the infield coaching or practice date sessions, but not wanting to lose him as a client, I scheduled our next coaching session to cover handling rejection. All right, I began the session. Start by pretending I'm a woman you're interested in and asking me to dance. Okay, he agreed. Hi there, I saw you dancing earlier and you look fun to dance with. Come with me on this next song. I'm not interested, I interrupted. Well, that was harsh. Now what did you learn? I said, breaking character. I don't know the right words to use to avoid getting rejected. I've been waiting for you to tell me what they are. You said you just got rejected. That is the first lesson to learn here. What really happened just now? I asked a girl to dance and she said no? Who was the man she said no to? What is he like? I don't understand. For the past 5 months, we've made you emotionally intelligent, a great conversationalist, financially responsible, in better physical condition than most your peers, and we even showed you how to dance. Now you tell me who lost out because of her saying no. You have all those things to offer, and what does she bring other than the fact that she's pretty? You're saying it's her loss? Exactly. You didn't get rejected. You just found out whether she has good taste, or better yet, a brain in her skull. Worse, she didn't even bother taking the time to get to know any of these things about you. She's in for a rude awakening later in life. A rude awakening? And with that, I showed him a viral video from the Facebook page of one named Tommy Lauren. Yes, the conservative commentator from Fox News. I never cared to watch her because she was nothing more than a Dana Lash ripoff, but I found this rant of hers interesting, titled PSA for Boyish Men. Some of it was common sense advice you'd give out to a guy about pursuing dates with women, like have a plan for a date instead of just asking to hang out. But towards the end, you could sense an underlying anger in her tone, especially when she repeated, "No woman should be made to feel not enough for a man." The anger in her voice was parallel to the fury you'd expect to see from a typical complaining Karen. Upon learning that she can't have things her way, she loses it. Lauren seems to have suffered a devastating blow like that, because within her angry voice was a hint of sadness and past hurt. A few months before the video was posted, she had broken it off with her fiancé, and he was quite a hunk. Tall, rich enough to buy her a $50,000 engagement ring, and a soccer player. So he had to be in good shape. He met all the marks of the hypergamous checklist, but as good as you can be, there's always going to be someone better. So I suspect that she left him because she found a better man more in line with her hypergamous wishes, and then this better man decided to leave her, and thus triggered her enough to post the video. Now, my point in showing this video to Caleb was that the main thing Lauren had to offer was her looks, which she probably used to her advantage ever since she grew into them. Her beauty gave her special privilege throughout her life, specifically the privileged power to choose whatever guy she wanted among the many offered. And when one was no longer doing the trick for her, she could drop him like a cigarette butt and get another 5 minutes later. Along the way, she probably rejected hundreds of guys, making them feel as bad as Caleb was feeling. But now, she for the first time just got rejected by a guy she really wanted, making her angry enough to post a rant on Facebook about it. This anger, she shows us, is not just an initial knee-jerk reaction, but rather her true colors and representation of her demeanor. When she doesn't get her way, when she doesn't get what she wants, she goes batshit crazy. The guy that ditched her saw this and got away from her, likely for this reason. Now, as she ages and her beauty fades, she finds that she has nothing else to use as a power over men to pick the best one for herself. Her beauty was the only thing that gave her this power in the past, and she used such power carelessly. She used it only to find guys with money and height, status, and looks, which she later found unfulfilling because there will always be someone with more of those things than the guy she has. This is her rude awakening, since the power her beauty gave her was used carelessly when she had it, and probably rejecting guys without giving them a thorough evaluation, she passed up many good men, and she cannot use her beauty, now fading away, to get them back. After reaching a certain age, most men will no longer consider her. It is then that she will regret writing off so many so quickly. Worse yet, after posting this video displaying that Karen-style rage and batshit craziness, she likely blacklisted herself to all men who saw it, and future potential suitors that will do a Google search on her before going any further. That, by the way, is a move I highly recommend you do before progressing with a new woman. With all this in mind, I told Caleb, as I am telling you now, rejoice when you are rejected. The kind of woman that rejects a man without even taking a second to examine him is the exact kind of woman that lashes out like Lauren. They are used to having everything handed to them in life and go ballistic when they don't get their way. Without knowing that this is really the case, you feel like a loser when you're rejected. But the real loser is the woman that rejected you. In Never Ghosted Again, I wrote that when a woman rejects you, the best way to handle it is as if she's retarded or too mentally disabled to understand what a good catch she pissed away. So do not hate her. Instead, pity her. What works even better is realizing what a bullet you just dodged. There's no point in beating yourself up for the hot girl not being nice to you. She's probably not nice in general. However, thinking this way is not enough. Plenty of guys out there that think highly of themselves will still suffer from the sting of rejection. For this line of thinking to actually work, you have to actually do the work to make yourself unworthy of the rejection, to make her stupid for doing it. You must be increasing your emotional intelligence, your conversation skills, your financial management, and building a better body in the gym. That's why we spent 5 months doing all these things with Caleb before talking about handling rejection. Thinking differently is not enough. You can't make hunger go away by thinking about food. You must do the work to be the one with greater value who can say, "Oh, it's your loss, honey." That is also the feel of the attitude you want to portray when you're being rejected. Never do you want to appear butthurt. Instead, just say, "Oh, you poor thing," or "All right, heaven help you," and walk away. Not just physically. Leave behind all thoughts of this woman. She did not give you the consideration you deserve. Thus, she deserves none from you. When you get a rejection text right after a date, immediately delete the conversation. Leave yourself nothing to analyze or scrutinize. It's never worth the effort, and any answers you can pull from the randomness are never satisfying enough. We cannot change the behaviors of others. We can only change our own behaviors. But strangely, Changing our own is the best way to change that of others. If you act like it was their loss to reject you, and act like it well enough, they will start to doubt themselves and think maybe it was a mistake. Much of the pain that comes post-rejection is not placed upon you by the woman dishing it out. Rather, it is placed upon you by your own inner judgments. Only humans have this horrific ability to render cruel and unusual punishment upon themselves. It's not what she did, but your own inner judgments are what's really making you feel horrible about what she did. Salt in the wound. Enough salt poured in the wound makes the pain an unforgettable experience that twists our perception of how bad the event was. She may have made the initial cut, but you poured in all the salt, making it more painful than it needed to be. Worse yet, it tells a lie to your mind that each time you go after what you want, pain at this level is soon to follow. So it's best not to go for it. Much of this trouble that comes post-rejection can be eliminated by choosing not to judge yourself so harshly afterward. We feel so terrible about being rejected because all throughout your life, you were conditioned to live as others demanded you should. For at least the first 18 years of your life, your only purpose in the eyes of others, particularly authority figures, was to live according to their wishes. And chief among these authority figures was your mother. It planted the idea inside you that your purpose is to please women. When one rejects you, it feels as though you've failed this purpose. As teenagers, we try to rebel against this authority, and strangely enough, this rebel attitude seems to be more in line with what women like in a man. But that rebellious attitude is eventually beaten out of us by the time we reach adulthood. By then, we're so used to falling in line that we've forgotten how to rebel. The biggest fear is no longer death, but life. To be alive and express who we really are and what we really feel. That is the result of our upbringing and conditioning along the way. After so much suppression of your true self was dished out by external forces, you fell in line to a point where you no longer needed those external forces to dish it out. Your own inner voice had developed a tone critical enough to substitute for them. Pay close attention to the harshness of this inner voice, because the extent of the abuse you take from yourself is the extent you will tolerate from others. By refusing to let your inner voice verbally abuse you with negative thoughts, you will not take the same kinds of shit talk from other people. Once it's apparent you will not take it, people become less likely to give it, because it's only wasted breath. The lesson here is to be impeccable, meaning without sin, when it comes to the words you use in your thoughts about yourself. While we like to use cliches, such as sticks and stones, there's no denying the power that words have over us. They can be just like hexes and spells. If enough people tell a girl, "Bitch, you are so ugly," she will go through life believing she's hideous, no matter how beautiful she may be. If enough women tell a guy he's not good enough for her, he will always think that about himself, despite the many women who'd give anything to have him. You cannot control the words others hurl at you, but you can control how you interpret them. They only have the power you give them, and you can certainly control the words you hurl at yourself in your head. Impeccable means without sin. And for the religious, you know very well what sin is. And for the irreligious, you might consider sin to be something that will later cost you. If you hurl an insult at someone, they dislike you in return. Making a new enemy out of them makes for an extra obstacle you didn't need, because life has plenty of them naturally on its own. Life is hard enough on its own, and you just made it harder. Insulting yourself has the same effect. It is just as sinful, if not more, because this time, you believe the source to be credible. An insult is nothing more than a negative opinion. Whenever we hear an opinion and buy into it, the opinion evolves into an imperative and becomes part of our belief system. These negative opinions are soliciting your agreement, for they need that to survive beyond the 3 seconds of thought. Be like the scientists in the dinosaur egg laboratories in Jurassic Park. We simply deny them that. It's only personal if you make it so. Probably every other dating coach you've sampled content from has told you that rejection is not personal. Many times, the reason for it may have nothing to do with you. But going back to the example of Tommy Lauren, the rejection of you says nothing about you. It says more about the person who does the rejection, especially when dished out quickly. The sooner you're rejected, the less personal it is. To take it personally is to adopt the ultimate form of self-absorbance and egotism. It assumes everything in life is all about you. This is the greater disservice to you than the rejection itself, because now you are inflicting upon yourself additional suffering without a reason for it. It seems as though humans are addicted to suffering at a diversity of levels, and they support each other in servicing these addictions. Let's assume you've been rejected in the harshest manner possible. She calls you an ugly creep and tells you to go fuck yourself because no one else will. What she's trying to do is poison you, and you welcome that poison by taking it personally. However, if you refuse to take it in, the dealer of such poison is now stuck with it. It festers and grows worse in them, not you. In most cases, though, rejection will not be so harsh. Women are not naturally confrontational, nor are they vicious. Despite the fempowerment mandate doing all it can to scrap the last tissue of sweetness out of every woman, their biological hardwiring has thousands of years of evolution supporting it, which overpowers 100 years of feminism. Owning real estate in the friend zone. Once, back in my blue pill days, I had a crush on a woman that was my best friend at the time. I wanted to tell her for years, but being blue-pilled, I was petrified. I had gone as far as to buy an engagement ring, which I had kept secret from her for a whole year. It was always in my pocket, waiting for the ideal moment. The ideal moment, I thought, came up finally when we were walking home from a restaurant within walking distance, which is where I took her for her birthday. But it started to rain heavy, and we had to run back to her house to get out of the drenching storm. Still, we were soaked when we arrived at her house. We had to throw our clothes in the dryer, before which I removed the ring from the pocket and sat by the fireplace, hoping to warm up. It was then that I proposed to her. Being the naturally kind and sweet person she was, she told me she felt so lucky and special to have me propose to her, the pre-rejection flattery to reduce its sting. She said that she only loved me as a friend, and the friend zone is where I was to stay if I were to remain in her life. Of course I felt horrible. After leaving her that night replaying the episode in my ruminating mind, I could tell I made her so uncomfortable. Her smile was bright enough to hide the awkwardness in the moment, but not during post-occurrence analysis of that moment. It was as if my proposal shocked her, like she had never considered me in the role of a worthy lover for her. Despite this being true and evident throughout our relationship, it was no less painful. I behaved like a gentleman, of course. Told her that I would still be her loyal friend and wouldn't let this awkward moment destroy the friendship we had. While it didn't eradicate it right away, it did slowly cause the erosion of it, like cancer cells upon an organ. Over time, our interactions with each other faded away into non-existence within a few months. But years later, and long after my red pill awakening, I ran into her again. So surprised, and pleasantly so, to see each other again, we grabbed a coffee to catch up. During our conversation over the usual things like jobs and living arrangements, she asked me, "Who's the lucky girl that's wearing that ring now?" I told her I wasn't interested in getting married anymore, so I sold the ring on eBay. Then she leaned in closer to me and confessed, "I couldn't tell you this then, but the reason I said no to you back then was because I learned I was pregnant with another man's child a few days earlier. You know I don't believe in abortion, and I know how you feel about kids, so I couldn't force that burden upon you." I had often spoke with her about how I never wanted to have kids because the stress they come with is stress I knew I couldn't handle, and also because I feared turning out to be exactly like my father, whom I despised. She was actually hoping I'd propose to her, but upon learning about the pregnancy, she no longer felt worthy of me, and she never told me about it because she knew my feelings about having kids. Here was I, beating myself up for so long because of this rejection, thinking it was actually personal. She was my best friend at the time, and knew everything about me, yet chose to turn me down still. It wasn't that she didn't know me enough, it's that I wasn't good enough, I thought, but it turns out she did me a favor. While not all rejections will be like this, remember that you do not know the full story. Sometimes you may never know, and often it's best for you not to know. Divorce yourself of the certainty hunger you have when it comes to having all the answers. Oftentimes, the answer will be something you couldn't have ever guessed. The more she knows of you when she rejects you, it's possible she's doing you a favor like mine did. Even if that is not the situation, she's still doing you a favor, because if she knows you so well, yet doesn't love you, then she's just not capable of loving you in the manner you deserve. The relationship would be so one-sided, and you'd grow to resent her. The less she knows of you, yet still rejects you, she's doing you a favor as well. She's too foolish to even examine what she's passing up, so her foolishness would drive you away soon enough. Do not fight to make a non-interested woman interested. There are plenty of better ones out there. Just say, she's a bitch, next, and move on. The more you try to get her interested, the more invested you will be in the woman, and the more dependent your happiness is on her reaction to you. Her reaction will not change, but your happiness will plummet. Rejoice when you're rejected, and feel sorry for the women that reject you. While they think you were inadequate, they will look back on their lives and find them to have been inadequate.
Thank you for listening to this free sample of the book, Reinvent Ideal: What to Do When You're Depressed and No One Cares Because You're Not a Chick, by Cairo Copeland. If you enjoyed it and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/ideal. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/ideal.